Okay, I wanted to come on here to make a video on these old Shimano freewheels. They are branded Shimano 600 and Shimano Dura Ace. You can see on this top bearing cone here, this cone race, it's branded Shimano 600 around there. And when they're all put together, you see that the cone kind of fits inside the freewheel like that, and you have this part which contains the pawls, and the lower bearing race kind of sticks through when it engages, and then this top race screws on. It's difficult to screw this one on because I've damaged the threads inside here, but once this race is screwed down, this part stands proud, and it allows access to the two gaps in this threaded part here, which is the part that you can actually put a tool on and apply some torque to remove the freewheel from the hub. As I said, I removed this one using a much more brute force method because I needed the freewheel off the hub for the project that I was working on, which is the bike behind me, the blue one. And I want to show you how I did it. So these freewheels I think were made by Shimano during the 70s and 80s. They're really nicely made actually. They seem to be very good quality, so I've taken this one apart and cleaned it up as much as I can. It's fully degreased. And I don't know if you can see very well there, but the machining quality on it and the production quality is really, really nice. They're really nicely made parts, so if it's possible to save them, then perhaps you should. Unfortunately, I've damaged this one and it's not really usable anymore, although the sprockets are still okay, and if anybody wants some sprockets, this is a 13 to 24, I think, something like that. If anyone wants them, then send me a message. So the way, what I think happens with most people is they see the freewheel on, and this is certainly what happened to me. They see that it has these two slots here, which is similar to what I believe is a Suntour removal method, and they think that the correct tool is this, which is the Park Tool FR2. It has these two teeth in it, and those two teeth are supposed to engage in these two slots, go in there and allow you to turn it. What you actually find if you have a good condition one of these is that you'll go to put your tool in there and it won't fit because these slots are too narrow. I got my FR2, went in there and found that you couldn't get that into the slot. So what I did, it was very close. They almost fit, so it's less than a millimetre out. What I did was I took a file and I filed these teeth down so that they're a slightly smaller dimension across these flats, so that they would then fit into the slots in the freewheel. Unfortunately, what then happened with me, and I believe what is quite common, is when the freewheel's on there very tight, which of course is very common, you can get the teeth in there well, not very well. You can get the teeth in there so that you can start to apply torque, but then as soon as you really start to apply torque, it's very easy for the tool to slip in that way, and you tend to find one of these teeth goes around the ID and the other one goes around the OD, and that's what's happened here. So you can see where the tool has slipped around the OD there. That's why the threads here have been damaged, and you've got an equivalent mark on the ID of both sides. You can see I've tried it both ways to get off, and with this one I've ended up quite badly damaging the mating surfaces and also the threads, so that this lock ring was actually quite difficult to get off, and it's really difficult to screw back on now. So I would need to chase the threads here if I wanted to get it back on. The correct tool in fact, for this, to remove this kind of freewheel is actually this. It was made by Shimano. It's called a Shimano TL-FW10. You can probably see the number there that's printed on it. And this tool is much, much more effective because it has these teeth that locate into those slots, but it also has this ID which fits snugly around the OD of this threaded part, so that when it goes on, there's no way that that can slip in the same way as the park tool can. So that if you've got this, you can very easily get, I think it's a 23-inch wrench. That fits on there nicely. This fits on really nicely as well, and you can apply a good amount of torque to that to remove the freewheel, and that's certainly the best way to remove this type of freewheel. The problem is, these parts, these Shimano tools, have been out of production for a very, very long time, and at least since the 80s, I think. And the first problem is they're very hard to find, and the second problem is if you do find one, they tend to be pretty expensive. So I paid about 40 euros for this one from the Netherlands. There wasn't one from the UK where I live at the time when I was looking for one. I managed to find one in the US as well for about $50, but I chose the one from the Netherlands, and after about 6 weeks in the shipping, it arrived with me. But because it was taking about 6 weeks to get to me, I decided that I needed this freewheel off, and I started playing around, and I think I've got a workaround which works pretty well. If you only have the Park FR2, which is available pretty much everywhere, it's still a tool that Park make, and you can just buy one from Amazon or wherever. So the way that I did it, I actually removed the sprockets from the freewheel before I discovered this method. So when I was removing it, I was actually just removing this part from the hub. But you could do it with the hub still assembled, and in that way you should be able to save the hub as well. So what I found was that the ID in this Park tool and the ID here are actually very, very close in size. So what I thought was, if I could get an insert that would go inside here and inside here, you should be able to secure the tool in the right place here, and when you apply torque to it to remove the hub, it won't slip. So what I initially did, I went and found an old handlebar in my kind of junk parts bin, and I cut off about 1 inch from the end, and I had to cut a slot out of it so that it would fit inside this ID. 1 second, I'm just going to get some calipers. So this ID here is around just under 20 millimeters, and this ID is just over 20 millimeters. So they're not exactly the same, but they're pretty close. So I tried a piece of handlebar. Handlebar, of course, was aluminium, and that didn't work because it just crushed the aluminium, and the tool slipped again. I then went off thinking, what cylindrical strong tools do I have? And I came up with this, which is something that probably most people have got in their toolbox. This is a 14 millimeter socket, just from a cheap socket set. And if you measure the OD on that, it is just under 20 millimeters, such that it fits really snugly inside the Park FR2. And if you then use the socket and put it together like that, the socket inside the two surfaces really has a good, really mates very well there. So it doesn't allow it does fall out, unfortunately, but you should be able to stop that from happening while you're applying torque. You are not going to, the Park tool is not going to slip while you've got this socket inside those two, across the two parts inside the middle. And that's I found that was really easy then to apply enough torque to remove the freewheel from the hub. I managed to save the hub, and the hub is now on the bike behind me. Unfortunately, I did destroy this freewheel in taking the sprockets off, but well, you know, that's just too bad. Now, if you want to do that with the freewheel still intact, I believe you will have to remove the axle from the middle of the hub and take it out, so that you've got the larger diameter hole in there. Pop that in, get your tool in there, and you should be able to apply enough torque without the part slipping, such that you can remove this kind of old style Shimano freewheel. Okay, thank you very much. I hope this helps somebody out. I know it would have helped me if I'd have found this video when I was trying to remove one of these things. As I said before, if anyone's interested in the sprockets from my freewheel, then send me a message. I don't know yet what I'm going to do with this tool, because I didn't ever get to use it properly, and now I don't really need it. So if you're desperate for one of these and you're in the UK and you'd like to borrow it, then send me a message.